All right, what's up? This is Anime Soiree. I'm here with Will. I am Kyle, and we are going to be talking about the first 100 chapters of Eiichiro Oda's epic manga, One Piece. This is basically the beginning of the manga, even though it's 100 chapters, because One Piece is absurdly long. Uh, as of right now, there are 1,000 chapters out, so and it's still going. Um, but I'm sure you all know that because One Piece is not only one of the longest shonen manga, but also one of the most popular.
Yeah, and do we just
Yes.
give a
Oh,
background on like what we've just our background with One Piece so far?
sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, so I just started reading. I'm like this is my first time ever reading One Piece. So I've only read these 100 chapters ish. A few more after, but we're just cutting it off at 100 for now.
Yep.
And then
And I am a huge One Piece fan. One Piece was one of the first anime that I started watching, and I haven't watched the entire anime because it does kind of get worse over time. But I basically just picked up the manga when that happened, um, and I've read all the manga and I'm caught up. Um, and I basically read it weekly whenever new chapters come out. And I am a huge fan. It's probably my favorite manga and one of my favorite series for sure.
all right. I guess we'll just jump right into it. I guess we'll just do a summary of each part and what we like about it. So we begin with Luffy as a very young boy, and he's growing up, and he wants to be a pirate. Wants to be. He's already got his ambitions, and he is befriending a man named Red-Haired Shanks. And after Shanks gets into some trouble with what were they, Marauders? I think they were called.
Yeah, the bandits.
Bandits, yeah. He gets into trouble with some bandits, and Shanks has to leave town. And Luffy wants him to take him with him, but Shanks says, "No, no, no. Give you my hat, and I'm out of here." Um, and then time skip to Luffy. What is it? Is it like 9 years later?
Well, before he leaves, some important things happen.
Oh yeah.
So basically the first thing that we see when we see Luffy, like I think it's like literally the first page that he's introduced, he's basically just stabbing himself in the face with the knife just because he wants to be a cool pirate with scars, like Shanks and his boys. And everyone's like, "Holy shit, Luffy, you're insane! Like you have huge balls and you're just crazy." And so they kind of like him for that. They think he's just a wild little kid. And that's kind of just the first impressions that we get.
Yeah.
Another thing is he also
I forgot to mention
eats
he
the
eats.
devil fruit.
Yeah, he eats the devil fruit. That's a pretty big thing to leave out.
Yeah, so the Shanks pirates were kind of just keeping it. They'd gotten it, I guess, from some plunder of some sort. And it didn't seem like they had any plans to eat it. But Luffy ate it just not knowing that it was a devil fruit, and he got turned into a rubber man.
And that was kind of good for him because Luffy's the biggest thing that Shanks was saying about Luffy was like, "You don't know how to swim, you'll never be a pirate." So he eats this fruit, becomes a rubber man, and says, "I don't need to swim.
Yeah,
I never needed to
exactly.
swim in my life."
Um, and it's kind of, I think it's kind of funny how it's like introduced as like when obviously he's a kid like in the time before the time skip, and so he doesn't really know how to use his power, but it's also basically just introduced as like this completely useless power. Like everyone is just sort of like pulling him around, and he can like stretch his mouth really long, but like he doesn't actually do anything useful with it at the time. And also, I guess the other thing is like before Shanks leaves, um, he gets his arm bitten off by a big sea monster
Yeah, he's
trying to
saving
save
Luffy, right?
Luffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and uh, and he does. He gets his arm bitten off, saving Luffy, and then he stares at the Sea King really hard, and then he runs away because he's so scared of Shanks and his intimidating aura.
Are sea kings just like leviathans or just like really large fish? Because that's the
Yeah, they're
impression I
basically
got.
just sea monsters.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I
Um.
think I think some show up later in the chapters that
Yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah.
talking
I just
about.
saw some towards episode 100, I think. Or not episode, chapter 100.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then we get a time skip. And Luffy goes to another village, and he's trying. This is him on his journey, trying to become the Pirate King. And you see,
Well,
he's
first we see him give a big old punch
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
the sea monster that bit off Shank's arm,
true.
which is pretty cool. That's like the first thing that we see him do post time skip, and that's like him just saying "fuck you," and
And we get to
also
see how
showing
much
off
he's
that
like
he's a lot
grown.
stronger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and he's actually found out a way to weaponize his devil fruit by basically like using, I guess, tension. Like he like pulls his arm back and like does like rotates it and stuff,
Yeah.
and yeah, he's able to do big old punches from a distance with it.
hmm Um, but yeah, he's trying to recruit a crew to become his to become the Pirate King. And he says got to be a strong crew. And first person he comes along is well, he comes in this town, and this town is kind of under control of these Marines that are there with is it Axar Morgan and Helmeppo, his brother or his son?
It is his son because he's
Son.
basically like, I don't hit you enough.
Yeah. But yeah, they've captured Roronoa Zoro, and he's a pretty famous or infamous bounty hunter in this area. And Luffy wants him to be wants to be on his team. And Zoro's not too keen on the idea at first, but after a series of events and a series of battles, they join forces. This is
Yeah,
he's
and
kind of
we also kind of learn a little bit about Zoro's backstory when he's introduced.
hmm
Um, we learned about this like rivalry that he had with this girl from his village who her father was basically like in charge of this like dojo where they would learn how to like do sword fights and stuff, and he would always lose to this girl, and she was basically like, like one of these days, like I'm not going to get stronger and you are going to get stronger because you're a boy and I'm a girl and my body has its limits. And Zoro is not too happy with that. He basically says, like, I think what makes him so mad about that is he's basically just saying, like, okay, well, are you basically implying that when I do surpass you, that won't be due to my effort? That'll just basically be due to something that was predetermined by birth, that I would just be stronger than you. He kind of feels like he's getting robbed of the victory that he sees for himself in the future, and
yeah.
then he doesn't even get a chance because she ends up just dying
Yeah,
from falling down the stairs.
I kind of didn't like her death. I thought if she's gonna die, make it like I don't know, doing something a bit more sword based instead of literally falling downstairs. Like if you want to be the best swordsman of all time and you die falling downstairs, I mean she's a kid, granted, but still, I was like,
Yeah.
wait, she just died falling downstairs? Like, come on.
Well, I mean, I kind of think that's just like, emphasizing frail her how frail she was, and how she would like she really did have an impossible dream,
Yeah,
um, that her it was basically just it's kind of like it's the opposite of what Zoro wants. Like
yeah,
Zoro wants everyone's like achievements to be due to their effort and their willpower. Whereas like in actuality, this kind of just reminds him that this is something that she would have never been able to do just because of how she was born. And so there are definitely like certain limitations to willpower and effort, which are things that Zoro really appreciates and wants for himself.
yeah. And it kind of, for me, at least, it brought up something that like you Zoro revisits quite a lot throughout the battles later on. Like, if I die here, then I truly was never meant to become the greatest swordsman. And he like says that a few times, I think, throughout the next few arcs, and it's like kind of
Yeah,
reminding me about just like that journey that he's going on. And also, I really like the line by Luffy. Well, like Zoro, he's like, "Oh, I want you to become in my crew," and Zoro's like, "I want to become the greatest swordsman of all time." And he's like, "What's your goal?" And Luffy's like, "I want to become the Pirate King. So if you want to become my crew, that's probably a good goal for you to have, because if I'm the Pirate King, then I want to have the greatest swordsman of all time on my crew." And I like that
yeah,
line by Luffy.
yeah, exactly. That's kind of like, I mean, the first few arcs are basically just collecting crewmates for the crew. And one of the things that I really like about all of these arcs is that they give each crew member like enough time to kind of be fleshed out as a character before they join. And one of the things that I think that we learn about every single one as we go through them is like they each have like some dream that they want to see achieved through their travels with Luffy. And that's kind of something that like all of the crewmates kind of like it's something that sets them apart from each other, but it's also something that brings them together, like their common goals. But we'll see more of that as we kind of go through the rest of the
Yeah, and that's
crewmates that get
something they
added.
actually like. There's like one page I think, right before the Grand Line that they all state their goals. And there's one goal
Oh
that I
yeah,
thought was a bit underwhelming, and that was, well, I guess we'll get to that later. I'll talk
yeah.
about it afterwards. But yeah, do you want to do anything more with that or go to the next arc?
Um,
I guess we
yeah,
cover.
we can go on to the next arc, but I just wanted to, before I guess talk about Kobe, who was kind of like introduced pretty early as kind of like a foil to Luffy, as like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's like really like timid and where Luffy is like just insanely brave, just like doesn't even consider danger. And he also like wants to be a marine, where Luffy wants to be king of the pirates. Um, so kind of like a foil, and they end up leaving Kobe at the end of this arc. They kind of like do this thing to show that they're not friends with him, because Kobe's now kind of at his chance to join the Marines, where they kind of uh, he basically talks a lot of shit just to like get Kobe mad and to show them that they're like not friends. And he's like, okay, fine, we'll let you join the Marines.
Yeah, I liked I like that like kind of opposite angle that we got to see from Kobe because like I was kind of going into it thinking like, oh, I feel like he's gonna be hanging out. He'll probably be hanging around um with Luffy, and this entire arc is gonna be him saying like, oh, the Marines aren't that great. I don't actually want to join the Marines. And the way it ended with him actually joining the Marines and him saying like, I want to be better than these people. I like that. That was cool. And it
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
sets up a lot
exactly.
of interesting angles to have like Kobe returning, and you do see like the little diary segments at the beginning of the later chapters with
Yeah,
Kobe and Helmeppo, and
uh-huh.
yeah, I like that. I'm sure we'll see him come back at some point, which would be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that arc. I mean, like, Axe Hand Morgan is pretty much just like he's not a crazy villain. He's basically just like, oh, I'm the best, and like
Yeah,
he's abusing the people under him and like in the village, and yeah, not a lot to him. Basically, just but he's also not. I don't think he overstays his welcome at all. This is a very short just a couple of chapters really to introduce Zoro, and yeah.
yeah. Um,
Also, he fights with three swords, one in his mouth.
oh yeah, that's yeah, that's cool. I remember like probably a year or two ago when I was talking with my friend from college. Somebody brought up Zoro, and I had never read One Piece, and I was like, this guy fights with three swords, one in his mouth. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He's like, well, you know he means business when he takes out that third sword. And I was like,
It's true.
that's what I was thinking the entire time I was watching Zoro fight. I'm like, all right, well, let's see it. All
Also,
right.
this is like I think that like Zoro is like the first of many like characters in One Piece that walk the line between like really goofy and really badass, because like just conceptually like fighting with a sword in your mouth is so silly, like it would never work, but it just makes sense in One Piece because One Piece is like it never takes itself too seriously. Honestly, it's like half comedy and like half shonen series, which is
Yeah,
like one of the things I really like about it.
yeah, that
And
was kind of the vibe that I got from it. I was just like, it's such a joy to read. It's never like super serious, but also it's like serious enough that it gets you hyped for the hype moments. And also like I never felt like I've always felt like pretty lightweight while reading it, like pretty joy filled to read, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I think that's one of the things that the series does well is like when it does want to be really badass, like it can be. And the fact that like a lot of the series is lighthearted kind of like makes those moments stand out even more. And then also like it's able to do moments where like you think that it's going to take itself seriously, but then it like turns it on its head and turns it into a joke. like I think that like the fact that it has like both of those options available to it just makes it like so that you don't really know how a scene is going to resolve. You know, you're
Yeah,
never sure if it's going to resolve like the typical shonen way, or if it's going to turn itself into a joke, or if something that like looks like it's the setup for a joke could actually turn into something that's pretty badass down the line. So
yeah.
I kind of like that.
And I think having
Uh,
Luffy as a main character is really it really helps with that because he's such a aloof kind of guy. He's just very easygoing and hyperactive and never seems to
yeah,
get down by anything. But then when he gets serious, like you see, we'll talk about Arlong Park, but Arlong Park, there's a pretty serious moment with Luffy, and it's just like, well, it's
yeah, exactly.
about to get crazy.
All right, yeah, let's move on to the next one, I guess.
Yeah. So next one
Um,
is Orange Town, right?
yeah, this is the buggy arc,
Yeah.
and also Nami is introduced in this one. Um, so Nami's kind of introduced as like this. She says it herself that she's a thief. She steals from pirates. Um, I mean, when we first meet her, she has just stolen like a little ship, little boat from a couple of Buggy's pirates, um, and they're kind of just heading towards Buggy's place, which is this island that he's kind of taken over this village. And yeah,
Yeah.
when
Wait,
oh, go
did you
ahead.
mention she's established as she steals from pirates only and she like hates pirates.
Yeah,
So this kind of secondary, I mean obviously like Luffy's trying to get people to join her crew, so first we have Zoro saying like, okay, I'm not a pirate, I'm a bounty hunter and that's not what I'm gonna do. And you have Luffy trying to convince him to join his pirate crew. And it's kind of by proving that Luffy's not really a normal pirate. And then also you have this next arc, him trying to convince her to join his crew, and she hates pirates, and so he's got to prove to her like this is a group that you'd want to join, and like we're not normal pirates, so you don't have to worry about like anything like that.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, so when they get to this island, the village, they've basically found out that there's no one in the village. Everyone's kind of left because of Buggy and his pirates taking over. Um, we find out a lot about Buggy, how he's basically motivated completely by just like wanting to get treasure and collect more and more material riches for himself. Um, and we kind of like this kind of like we see like some contrast, I guess, for some of like the other characters that are like in the village and also some of like our main characters. I guess like one of the first characters that we meet besides Buggy and his crew is like this little dog who's just sitting outside of the store. And we find out that from like the village's elder that his owner like used to have that store, but then his owner died. And the village chief thinks that the dog knows that his owner is dead, but he wants to stay by the store to kind of like because it's he cherishes the memories that they had made there, and it's kind of like his own personal treasure. Which is kind of like this thing that gets brought up a couple times during this arc is like the idea of like personal treasure. Um, whereas like Buggy values just like treasure, like riches, like gold coins, jewels, things like that. Um, there's that's contrasted with this idea of like personal treasure, which is something that is not inherently super valuable, but is very valuable to a specific person. Like basically for Luffy, we find out that it's his hat that Shanks gave him, and yeah, I mean one of the things that happens during like the final fight is that the hat gets kind of it gets stabbed a couple times by Buggy, and Luffy gets really upset by that, and Buggy's like, "What the hell? It's just a hat.
Yeah.
It's no big deal."
Hmm.
But you know, Luffy uses that to kind of like as his connection to Shanks, who is one of his biggest inspirations for like wanting to take on the seas and become a pirate king. So I kind of
Yeah,
like
and
that.
I really like the idea that they revisit quite a lot with the personal treasure thing. It's
Yeah,
usually never like a really long and like in-depth thing, but like Luffy pointing out when he notices somebody else has a very interesting personal treasure. I think he mentions it with Nami and no, I think it's somebody else, but yeah, I like that motif they go back to.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
definitely
I think
it's
this
an
is like the first arc where they really kind of like dig into it, but it's definitely something that's like a theme throughout the entire
yeah, and it's
manga.
a just a very interesting thing to talk about when you've got like especially with like a crew of pirates whose job is literally to go through treasure. When you have somebody who has personal treasure, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
And also Luffy's hat being damaged, but then also the shop that the dog was guarding gets destroyed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, that's like a nice contrast.
And then also, I think the idea is kind of presented that just like the village is the elder's personal treasure because he's willing to put his life on the line to defend it, even though he's fighting against all these pirates that are way stronger than him.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, a lot of personal treasure gets damaged in this arc, but I think that's kind of like what's interesting is that that doesn't mean that like the value has been lost, you know? Like it's not really presented as like, oh no, like the shop is destroyed now, like this dog can never like be like doesn't have this connection to his owner. Like he still has all of like the memories and stuff like that. Um, so I think that it's kind of like saying that like the personal treasure is kind of like more durable than like real treasure, you know? You
yeah,
can like lose your coins and then it you know you don't get anything from that. But
hmm
even if Luffy lost his hat, he would still have Shanks as an inspiration.
yeah. Although I imagine if he lost his hat, it would still be pretty damaging
Oh
to
yeah,
him.
it would still be very, very, very painful. Like he, I mean, I kind of like there's a couple times like where he like after the like battle in the next arc, he like the first thing that he says when he wakes up is like, "Where's my hat?" And
Yeah.
Sanji's like, "It's literally right here. Don't worry about it."
um,
uh,
and then yeah, I guess we should talk about touch on Buggy a bit because Buggy is the first time we ever see another person that has also taken the devil fruit. Um,
yeah.
oh, I guess we forgot to talk about isn't Alvida before this arc?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We do. I mean, we kind of missed Alvida, but she does not
Well,
have a devil fruit this
yeah.
time, and
So
she's like kind of like the way that we're introduced to Kobe.
yeah.
He kind
So we're introduced to Kobe through Alvida, and Alvida comes back later, which is important. But yeah, we're introduced to Buggy in this chapter, and he's defeated by Luffy. And then we see through the next, I think it's like the next 40 chapters. The covers are all the
of,
story of Buggy after this arc. Um,
yeah.
so it's
I think
cool
this
that
is such a genius thing that One Piece does to have
yeah,
like these like cover arcs
yeah,
that are like they like do a lot to make the world feel like there's more going on than just
yeah,
like what the protagonists are dealing with. And then they also like because you see Buggy on the covers, like even before Loguetown, you know that Buggy is going to come back and then he's like going to be like a more like and same with like Kobe and Helmeppo when you see the training arc
yeah,
and like how they're working towards becoming Marines. So I kind of like that it's like set up for like characters where you're like, oh, these like are going to come back in a main narrative kind of way, but then also like you learn more about them ahead of time. Like for the Buggy and for the Buggy arc, we find out that he like teams up with this like mysterious woman pirate, and then we find out later that she's actually Alvida after she's had this devil fruit.
yeah. I think
So I like
it's
yeah.
so interesting. Like, I mean, obviously I've never read another manga besides this and Attack on Titan, but I've it's a very interesting thing to do. Have like a mini story that doesn't go into quite as much detail, but just one per chapter, one literally one frame per chapter, and it advances that story. And like you said, it makes the whole world feel like it has something to do. And it reminded me of. Have you seen Better Call Saul?
I've not.
Okay. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of Breaking Bad, Saul Goodman, he like goes into basically a witness protection program, and he goes
Hmm.
into, um, like I think it's Kansas. He's
Okay.
somewhere in the Midwest. And Better Call Saul,
Uh-huh.
every season, not episode, but every season starts with maybe like a 10, 20 minute black and white, completely silent segment. Actually, no, it's not silent, but black and white segment of Saul in this later time after Breaking Bad. And there's been 5 seasons of the show, so it's not like it's basically a full episode of these short segments after the time skip whereas the rest of the show takes place before Breaking Bad. These little like windows into the post Breaking Bad thing set up like this nice story coming into the last season, and that's kind of like the vibe that I got from these, where it's these little things, and by themselves they're not a whole lot, but they're setting up stuff later, and it's super cool, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like one of the things that I think that like that One Piece does better than any other series that I've read is like the little setups for things that will become like a big deal down the line. And I mean, it's something that like you can only really do in a series that's this long, and it really makes you like like when people say like, "Oh, but One Piece is like so long, I don't want to get into it." Like this is like the reason why the length is justified because like I mean, and we haven't even really seen like the huge payoffs for this kind of thing yet. I mean, we saw like a little bit with like like Loguetown as a payoff for like the buggy arc, but like there are like so many great payoffs to come for things that are set up in these first 100 chapters and things that get set up down the line that end up paying off hundreds of chapters later. I think that's just something that like One Piece does really, really well, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it a lot as we continue to cover the series, like as it goes on.
Yeah. All right. So the next arc after Orange Town is Syrup Village, where we get introduced to Usopp.
Yes.
And I liked the little note. Usopp's character is introduced as like a lying, kind of mischievous character. But he's like we come to realize that he's got a heart of gold. And I like the little note at the beginning talking about Aesop's fables and the boy who cried wolf, and that kind of
Hmm.
that very small, brief little thing sets up Usopp's like little story that he's gonna have to do. He'll have to convince the village that the pirates are coming or whatever, or some grand plan is going on, and they probably won't listen to him. And that I think it really does a lot to set up his backstory, and it's like a quick way to do a backstory too, where it's like, all right, this is a pretty well established story, so we don't have to go into a whole lot of detail, and we can focus on the important things with like Usopp and his relationship with I can't remember her name, but the
Kaya.
Kaya, yeah. We can set up that and then focus more on Usopp and Kaya and that relationship, so that later down the line when pirates appear, you kind of already know what's going on with him in the town, and you can build upon that. So instead of him trying to convince the town that the pirates are coming, the Usopp instead says, "Okay, no, I'm gonna play the fool again. It's my own fault." And you kind of he grows at that point where he says, "Well, I've led them lies all this time, and at this point, I'm gonna own up to my mistakes. I'll let them believe that this is a mistake or this is a lie, just old Usopp again, saying pirates are coming. And if I don't defeat the pirates, then that's my own fault, and that's the culmination of my life so far. And I like that a lot with Usopp. It's probably my favorite arc at that point so far.
Yeah, I like really, really like I mean Usopp is one of my favorite characters in the series because I think one of the things that's great is that he is introduced like with so much growth in this arc, like going from kind of like someone who's lying and not really willing to take on the consequences of that to someone who realizes, okay, like you said, like no one will believe me, so I just have to like shoulder this on my own because of my past actions. So kind of like accepting responsibility for that, but also like he still has like so much room to grow as a character after this because like he is like introduced as a coward. Like he is one of the like everyone else. I mean, even like Nami in her own way, like all of the other members of the crew are like really brave. I mean, especially like or especially Zoro and Luffy, and when Sanji gets introduced, they're all just like insane. They're like monsters. They're like willing to like charge into battle all the time. And I mean, that's kind of like your typical like shonen hero, right? But I like how Usopp kind of provides like a nice counter to that, and also like he has some of like the best like comedy moments in the series for sure, and I just really like one of the things that I really like about Usopp that we'll see more of as we go on is like his dynamic with like Luffy. I like how he's like the beginning. He's like, "Oh, I'm like you want me to come on your crew? Like I can be the captain." And they're like, no, you're not going to be the captain." Yeah, there's just like a lot of good stuff with Usopp.
Yeah.
But talking more about like this arc in particular, yeah, I mean like there are these the Kuro Pirates, and there's kind of like theme of like deception that's going throughout the entire arc. Not only just about Usopp, who's kind of like telling these lies that are what like they're not ill intentioned. He's just telling them to, as he says, to like make these people's lives more interesting because nothing ever happens in this boring village. Whereas like that's like contrasted with Kuro, who's maliciously lying about his past and who he is, basically so that he can uh, take Kaya's inheritance and like all of her money, um, and live a peaceful life because he doesn't want to be a pirate anymore. He doesn't want to deal with all the stress, of having to like constantly defend his plunder and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's like he's also a huge liar. He's been lying this entire time, but because he's he's been covering it up so well, no one believes Usopp when he uncovers the lie
Yeah,
and he
I
tries
kind of
to tell
liked
the
him as like
truth.
a complete counter to Usopp because he's so Usopp's been lying this whole time, so nobody believes him. This guy um, has been so truthful and so loyal and so everything up these 3 years that he's been with his family. Nobody believes when I mean this is kind of going with Usopp as well, but like nobody would dare believe that this guy is gonna try to steal this inheritance right out from uh, under Kaya. Um,
Yeah, I think it's done really well because it's like you don't blame anyone for not believing Usopp
yeah,
because not only because of the fact that he's been lying all the time, but also because this guy has been undercover for so long. Like it's I think they say like 2 or 3 years or something, that he's been a butler for Kaya. So
yeah.
um,
Um,
yeah.
let's see.
Also, Django is in this arc, the hypnotist. Um, Pretty funny. He's introduced as just like basically hypnotizing himself all the time
Yeah,
when he like is also hypnotizing other people, which is pretty cool.
he seemed like low
And
key
he's
kind of
basically
strong.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, like just a lot of like gag characters in One Piece like are actually end up being more than just gag characters. I mean, being able to hypnotize people is like pretty good.
Yeah, and it's like
Um,
pretty strong hypnosis. Like you can do a lot of stuff with it.
yeah, he like literally like powers up his entire like all of like the crew just because like he's like, all right, now you're gonna like be strong now. Like he hypnotizes them into being stronger, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, they get defeated, and then he says, "You're no longer defeated. Also, you're stronger." And they come back.
Yeah, because they believe it.
Yeah.
But I
Um.
think he also hypnotizes Luffy, if I remember correctly, to like being stronger, um, which is pretty cool
Yeah, he
too.
like knocks out Luffy, and then I think he accidentally hypnotizes Luffy to be stronger.
Yeah, pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
And he's also Michael Jackson, so
Yeah,
that's good too.
exactly. It reminded me
Yeah,
of like
there are like
JoJo,
so
where
many.
like some of the characters straight up have names of like rock bands. This guy like straight up
Yeah,
looks like Michael Jackson.
yeah, there are definitely a lot of character designs. Like for One Piece, it's less like the names and more just like the character designs that
Yeah.
are like kind of like homages to different people and like pop culture figures.
Hmm.
Um, there's like, I mean, it's definitely not as like prominent as in JoJo, but there's definitely a few more as we'll see down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, down the line as down
Down
the
the
Grand Line.
line. Um,
um, yeah.
what
Anything
else?
else about this arc? I mean, oh, they also get the ship, the
Oh
Going
yeah, they get their
Merry
ship.
during this arc,
What are they? What's his name
which
again?
is Going Merry.
Going Mary. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a very important step for them, and it's
And
a pretty
in
cool
the
ship.
in between, I believe they get the flag as well. In between this arc and the next arc, I think.
Yeah, we get to see like Luffy's awesome first attempt.
It
Um,
looks terrible.
yeah, and then I think Usopp actually is the one who first suggests one with his face on
Yeah,
it,
because
and
he
then they're
wants to be
like,
the
no,
captain.
yeah, exactly. Um, and then he actually draws a pretty good Jolly Roger for the Straw Hat Pirates, which
Hmm.
is pretty cool. I like this is kind of a good example to talk about like the kind of like downtime that we get between arcs sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like an entire chapter where it's just them like doing the flag and like kind of like being on the ship and just hanging out, which is like cool. And there was also the one in before the Usopp arc with them being on that island with the guy who was stuck in the treasure chest.
Oh
Um,
yeah. With Alvida and Kobe.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that
um,
guy. He was cool. He seemed
yeah,
chill.
yeah. Like that's one of the things that I really like about like One Piece is just like that it's not it's not always firing on all cylinders. Like sometimes just for like a chapter, like it'll be a little bit more relaxed,
Yeah.
um, which is cool
Um,
because we get to like see like how the characters interact with each other. And I mean, like I'm not going to say that One Piece characters are like the deepest characters of all time, but like seeing them interact and like mess around with each other does a lot to make them feel at least more endearing.
yeah, it definitely makes the crew feel more alive and gets to like even
Yeah,
like the
and more
small
like their
things.
friends, even though they're so different from each other.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Even the small things that just like, all right, let's design a flag. All right, Usopp, you try to design a flag, I'll design a flag. Well, Luffy's got the spirit for the flag, but he's not a very good artist. Usopp's a great artist, but he made himself the captain, so he put his face on the flag,
yeah,
and then that just like that like little two frame thing is just like enough to like, oh, you crazy old
yeah,
Usopp again,
exactly.
and it gets you,
Yeah,
it makes the characters feel more alive, and like the interactions with each other and the crew as a whole just feel more
yeah.
alive.
I like I think a lot of shonen kind of they end up you learn all about the characters like through fights because that's like all the characters are doing all the time is fighting. But I like it when we learn things about the characters, even if it's just like things like Usopp is a good artist from things outside because
Yeah,
it makes them yeah it makes it feel like there's actually a dynamic between the characters and not just like oh like these are the guys that are like doing the fights and stuff.
yeah, for sure.
um yeah. All right, yeah, next arc is Baratie. It's this floating restaurant that they go to because they realize that they're going to need a cook before they hit the Grand Line or else they're going to starve. So they go there and they meet Sanji, who is he's a chef. I think he's the assistant head chef on the restaurant, and he's got a curly eyebrow and blonde hair, and you can only see one of his eyes. And he always wears a suit, which is pretty cool. And he's always smoking a cigarette because he's a
Yeah,
cool guy.
and this they've kind of been building up that they need, like before they found Nami, they said they need a navigator. Before they found Sanji, they said they need a cook. And they've kind of been
Yeah,
building up who they need. So Sanji, they're going to this restaurant and then expecting them to find this cook, and that's Sanji. Right now, he's a cook, but he's also playing waiter, and doesn't seem too great at his job.
yeah. Also, let it be known that Luffy's first idea for the next crewmate was not a cook; it was a musician because pirates need to be singing all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Um,
he still says, I
which
think he
is
says that after Arlong as well. He says we'd still need a musician or something like that.
yeah. Luffy is going to get his musician,
Yeah,
damn it.
exactly.
Yeah. So so Sanji is not only a cook, not only a waiter, but he can also really good with his legs. Um, and that's kind of like his fighting style that we'll be seeing as like he does more fights and stuff. Um, and they kind of refer to him as Blackleg Sanji. And we also oh shit, before we talk about this arc, I wanted to say like one last thing about the Usopp arc.
Yeah.
I like how we learn at the very end that like one of the reasons that we learn like the first time that Usopp told the lie about the pirates coming was actually, I mean, this is where the arc turns into like a real tearjerker, was like on the day that his mom was basically dying.
Oh yeah.
Um, and he was like, "Oh, like dad's come back," because we find out that his dad's a pirate. He's actually a member of Shanks's crew, which is cool.
Yeah.
And like we find out that his mom's dying in this flashback, and he's trying to make her feel better. He's like, "Oh, dad's back. The pirates are coming. The pirates are coming to the village," and that's kind of like the first time that he's like telling the lie, um, which is yeah, that's real sad.
Yeah, I
But
actually had forgotten that right now that I remember his dad being a pirate, but I completely forgot that he was also part of Shank's crew. Isn't his name like
yeah,
Osop or Osep, something like
Yasop,
similar? Yasop, okay.
Yasop, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we will see him later.
Yeah. Yeah, with Baratie, we get to, or Baratie, I don't know how it's said. Um,
I
yeah,
don't
so
know.
we get introduced to Sanji and his other cooks. at this floating restaurant, and the head chef there is ex-pirate and has to deal with. I guess it's there's just one guy, right? That initially it's just I can't remember his name, like the first mate of the crew.
Uh, Jin or Jean.
Yeah, Gene. Um,
Yeah,
so he's the first mate of fuck the Krieg
Don
Don Krieg's
Krieg.
pirates.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Don Krieg's pirates is that they've been to the Grand Line, and they said it kicked their ass. So this is like the first we've heard of people like I think Buggy said he wanted to go to the Grand Line, right? He hadn't been there.
No, no, no. Actually, because Buggy was on the I think. Well, actually, has Buggy been? I don't know.
Oh, we also
If
forgot to mention
they
Buggy's met Shanks. That's kind of
yes,
important.
Buggy and Shanks were on the same crew when they
Yeah.
were little kids,
Anyway,
or
this is
yeah,
like
when
the first.
they were basically cabin
Yeah,
boys.
this is the first we hear, or this is like the most upfront example we hear of like pirate crew that's been to the Grand Line and like how scary the Grand Line can be. Because Don Krieg seems like a pretty scary character, and they say he was there for like less than a week, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and you
Um.
see him and his entire crew have been devastated by this thing. Sanji feeds uh, Jin food, and Jin says thank you. Jin brings back Don Krieg, hoping that he won't Don Krieg won't want to harm this restaurant that he had been treated so nicely at. But Don Krieg says no way. He needs that boat because his boat has been destroyed at the Grand Line. So Don Krieg and his pirates, after getting fed by the captain, the what's the head chef's name?
Zeph.
Zeph, Red Leg Zeph. After Red Leg
Yeah.
Zeph feeds them, uh, they get their strength back and try to take the ship. And that's when the
Yeah.
main conflict comes.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that like one of the things that's kind of presented as a source of conflict among the cooks at Baratie is the like they're like Sanji, why are you feeding these pirates that are just going to like come back and take our ship? And Sanji's basically like, you know what? Like it's I don't want to think about like the consequences of feeding people. I'm just a cook. I'm just gonna feed people. If someone is hungry, I will feed them, and I'll worry about the consequences later. Which is like I think it's kind of it's a cool. I mean, at first I was like, "Ooh, why would Sanji think that?" Like, it's kind of like a weird thing. Um, and I mean, it's kind of like brought to light later when we learned about his backstory. But there's like this great moment where he's like literally like feeding one of the pirates, and then like, oh wait, no, that's actually not. That's later. Where he's like feeding the cow in Arlong Park, like the fish cow.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then immediately afterwards, like he he just like kicks him,
yeah.
which is kind of like Sanji's philosophy. Like, you know what? Like people deserve to eat, and then if they want to fight me after, then I'll fight them after. But I'm
I
gonna make
forgot to mention we
friends.
also got introduced to Johnny and Yosaku, who are
Oh
also
yeah.
bounty hunters and friends of Zoro, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
chilling on a rock, and they find them on the way to the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes with later when Nami betrays them. After like once the battle's kind of kicking off, Nami takes a boat and takes their boat, and I think Johnny, I can't remember if it's Johnny or Yusaku, that comes back and tells them that Nami has taken their boat, and
Mm-hmm.
Luffy tells Zoro and Johnny, I think it's Zoro and Johnny and Usopp, all to chase after
Yeah,
Nami.
it's basically like for the climax of the arc, it is just Sanji and Luffy, but we
Yeah.
missed an important thing that happens before that, which is so like we kind of find out that one of the reasons that Don Krieg's crew came back from the Grand Line is well when their ship shows up, it's like all battered. People are like, oh, like there's no way that another crew did this. Like this was definitely like some sort of natural disaster that fucked up their boat.
Hmm.
Um, and then we later learned that it was actually not a natural disaster, and it was
Oh
one
yeah, yeah,
man
yeah.
who was responsible for their entire like they had a fleet of like 50 ships that they took to the Grand Line,
Hmm.
and this was the only one that made it out um, because of one man's destruction, and that man uh, is
Hawkeye
Hawkeye.
Mihawk.
Yes, Um,
and he
and
is big sword man,
yeah,
and that makes
he has
Zoro
a very, very
jealous.
big. It kind of looks like a cross on his back when he shows up. But yeah, by the way, he shows up in Baratie. He cuts their ship in half with one swing of his sword, which is pretty impressive. And like this basically right as the fighting is about to kick off, he comes in to shake things up. He's like, "Ah, I followed you from the Grand Line, and I'm here to finish what I started." So he cuts their ship, and then Zoro is, as they're kind of like talking about this hawk-eyed man. They kind of like Zoro. We get some panels of Zoro being like, oh, "Nani?" Like he knows this guy, and we find out that he's the basically the strongest swordsman. And Zoro, as his goal to become the strongest swordsman, needs to surpass him. And he's like, "All right, well, I didn't think that I would come across you this early on in my journey in my quest, but I'm gonna take a shot at the champ." So that's what he does. He basically challenges Hawkeye to a duel. Mihawk, he accepts, and there's this really cool sword fight between him and Zoro, where Mihawk is using the tiniest of knives. He said, "Sorry, I didn't bring a smaller knife, but this is all I got." And so he's literally fighting with this like tiny little blade, and he's kicking Zoro's ass with it, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
Shows that Zoro has a long way to go before he can fulfill his dream.
Yeah, and we get like a nice character moment where Mihawk kind of recognizes he doesn't kill Zoro. He you think Zoro's dead and knocked into water. I think I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or
Well, we get the great moment where Hawkeye like they do their like they run at each other and they slash, and then he's down, and then when Hawkeye turns around, Zoro is like facing him again with like his arms spread, and he's like um and he was like, "Yo, finish it!" Like but also he says like what is it? A wound on the back is a shame for a swordsman.
oh
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
like that's a swordsman's shame, a shame. And so Mihawk does him the honor of cutting him real hard across the chest.
Hmm.
Looks like that will leave a mark.
Yeah, and Luffy
And
is
so
like, "Oh my God, you killed him." Mihawk's like, "Nah, he's not dead. Don't worry." And
yeah,
Luffy, like Mihawk, kind of recognizes Luffy's commitment to Zoro and like how how close they were, and how broken that Luffy was that he thought Zoro died. And he's
hmm,
like, "What's your name, kid?" He's like, "I'm Luffy."
yeah.
And that
And
comes
he's
into
like,
play.
"What's your dream?"
Yeah, what's your
And he's like,
dream?
"I
I
want
want
to
to
be the
become
king of
the
the
king of the
pirates."
pirates.
Yeah.
So
He's
yeah,
like, "That's a little harder than being the strongest swordsman, but
yeah.
maybe you can do it."
And then he's like, "Wow, that's really cool. Catch you guys around, but I hope to see you sometime. I hope for a rematch." And I thought that was pretty cool. I always like those
Yeah.
moments where like maybe next time, kid.
Yeah, and Zoro raises his sword to the sky. One of the sword that didn't get shattered because one of his swords got broke real bad in that fight. He raises his sword to the sky and he says, "I'm never going to lose again." And it's a
Yeah.
really good moment
Yep.
because he not only feels like he has failed to live up to his goal personally, but I think that he also is thinking that Luffy is, he's failed to live up to his standards that Luffy should be setting for him. Um, I really like this aspect of Zoro and Luffy's relationship because not only does Zoro want to be the strongest swordsman for himself, but he says like in this, he's like, "Oh, it would be an embarrassment to the Pirate King if he didn't have the strongest
Yeah,
swordsman on his crew."
exactly. And I thought it was a
Yeah,
nice. It's just like a nice like culture shock to Zoro. Like Zoro, at this point, we're thinking, okay, Zoro's a pretty strong character for the people that we've met so far. And this
yeah,
guy just completely destroys Zoro, and Zoro's like, well, I guess I have a long way to go.
yeah, exactly. He's like, is the distance between me and the world's best really this big?
Yeah.
And it is. Yeah. So
Um.
Zoro's out of commission. He is
Yeah.
heading to Arlong Park, or actually at this point they don't know. They're just like, "But we're gonna follow Nami because she took our ship." Turns out she was actually a thief all along.
Yeah.
So they're following them, and Sanji and Luffy are left behind to deal with Don Krieg's attack on the restaurant.
Mhm. And then yeah, we get a little backstory with Zeph, Red Leg Zeph. Why he's called Red Leg Zeph? That's because he was a great pirate at one point, and he was known for his kicks. And His legs become red with all the blood of the people that he killed with his kicks.
Yeah,
And
it's fucking
we
crazy.
learned that he spent quite some time on the Grand Line,
Hmm.
and this is pretty valuable information for Krieg. So he says like, you probably have logs from your time on the Grand Line, and I need to take those logs because I want to go back to the Grand Line, and those logs of information and what I can expect coming from the Grand Line is pretty valuable to me, and I will survive a lot longer once I get there with that information. So that is another motivating factor for Krieg besides just taking the restaurant ship because his is now destroyed from Mihawk. And yeah, I don't think we see Zeph really fight at all. Um,
No, he's like, well, we see him like like deflect a bullet with his kick,
yeah,
basically. Or no, he puts out fire with his kick, um, later. But
I was
yeah,
kind of
we
expecting him to
do.
be like the old, like the classic anime trope of okay, this old man is gonna like just whoop Krieg's ass.
Right, right.
Um,
Um, no, he's not that guy.
yeah.
There are instances of that guy in One Piece though, so you know, keep your eyes out. But yeah, so we also learn not only about how notorious Zeph was when he was a pirate, and when he was on the Grand Line and stuff, but we also learn about the reason for Sanji working the Baratie,
Oh yeah.
and find out that they were basically so when Zeph was a pirate, he attacked a restaurant that Sanji was working as when he was like a little kid. He was probably like 9 or 10 or something, basically just like a busboy probably. Um, and he attacked the restaurant, and then while they were on the ship or something, uh, there was um, there was like some he basically Sanji was trying to stand up. He was like, you know what, like you guys are all gonna die, just like surrendering. I'm going to like actually fight him. So he like walks up with these two big kitchen knives, showing that he was a brave boy even back then. Um, and like Sanji gets knocked off the ship because Zeph kicked him out of commission, and Zeph is like, "Oh shit! Like that kid's gonna die because I kicked him. I should probably try to save him." So he like he basically kicks off the mast of his own ship,
Hmm.
um, to use it as like a raft, I guess, for like once he like saves Sanji. And basically, we don't see this because Sanji was KO'd, and then they wake up stranded together on this island where they can't fish because of like the slopes, the particular slopes of the island, been like washed away so that they can't. If they were to go down into the water and try to get a fish, they wouldn't be able to climb back up, so they die.
Hmm.
So they basically have no food.
Well, they
And
have two bags of food.
yes, they do. So Zeph has two big bags. One of them is a little smaller. The other one is very big. And he says, "All right, this is your food. This is my food. You go to this side of the, or I'm gonna go to the other side. You stay here, and we're gonna look for ships." Sanji's like, "What the hell? Your bag's so much bigger than mine." And Zeph is like, "I am a grown up, so I eat more." Uh, so yeah, we see that, and then we see Sanji ration out what was supposed to be 5 days of food to like I think 20. Well, I actually kind of like this like little detail. Like Sanji was he's like, okay, if I ration it out, I can make this 5 days worth of food last for 20 days. And we see like on the first day, he's like a little tempted. He like wants to eat more. He's like, no, it's only the first day. Like, come on. But then we actually don't see him run out. We see that he runs out of food on the 25th day.
Yeah.
So he was actually able to ration it even longer than he thought,
Yeah.
which was a cool little moment for kid Sanji, that he had a little bit more willpower than he thought. Um,
And by that point,
and
it's
then
like moldy bread and stuff.
yeah, yeah, he's like eating moldy bread, and this was after previously on the restaurant. He was like, "Why are you eating leftovers, guys? Like, come on, that's just
Yeah.
that's gross. That's not gonna that's yeah." And then they're like, we're on the sea, bro. Like we don't know what's gonna happen the next day, so we're making the most of it." Um, and Sanji doesn't see, but I think now he's realized the error of his ways because afterwards he gets really mad whenever anyone tries to waste food. But the real reason that he gets real mad when people try to waste food is because he sees that Zeph on the other side of the island, after like I don't know, like 3 months of being on the island, he
Yeah, that's
goes
a long
over
ass
and
time.
he's like, all right, I'm gonna kill this guy and take his food basically, because he must have more food than me. But he cuts open the bag, and there's no food in there. There's just treasure. And he's like, "What the hell, Zeph? Like, how did you survive this long without eating food?" And then he sees the dramatic shot of Zeph sitting cross-legged, but with only one leg.
Yeah.
And he
He.
basically ate his own leg to survive so that Sanji could have all the food.
Hmm.
Um, and Sanji is, he's obviously touched by this act of kindness, but he's also like, why the hell would you do that for me, old man? So he's confused. But then they eventually get saved, which is nice. So they don't die on the island. And yeah, and that's why Sanji basically feels like he owes Zeph like a debt of gratitude. He feels so grateful for this, but he also doesn't feel like he's earned it. So that's kind of why he's been working at this restaurant for so long, and why he doesn't feel like he can leave. Because at this point, Luffy has already asked him to come with him,
Yeah.
but Sanji doesn't. He doesn't want to, even though the old man has made it very clear that like he's not the one who wants Sanji to stay around. He doesn't really. I mean, he outwardly doesn't have a very high opinion of Sanji, um, and so it's just that Sanji kind of feels like he has to stay there because of what Zeph did for him. But yeah, that's kind of like Sanji's backstory, and then we get some fights with Don Krieg,
Don Krieg. Yeah.
who has a lot of gadgets and gizmos in his suit of armor.
Yeah. It's kind of his
Um,
thing. He's like, I with all these gadgets and gizmos and weapons, I can conquer the Grand Line, and I am the greatest of all time. And it's like
mhm.
seems kind of artificial. I guess that's kind of the point of this character. Like, it's not him that's the strongest. It's like how he uses these gadgets and gizmos, and it's not.
Yeah,
It's like once you take those away, he's not really anything. Um,
exactly.
and
He's
that's
like
kind of
Iron Man.
the point of it. Yeah, yeah, kind of like Iron Man, uh, pirate Iron Man with
Yeah,
poison gas and stuff. Um,
and a spear that explodes,
yeah.
which is
Um,
kind of silly, but okay.
and you
I'm
have
sure it
like
works.
this,
It's One Piece logic.
yeah. You have this interesting dynamic with Jean, who once Krieg starts attacking, Jean seems to have like turned back with Krieg, but he's kind of troubled this entire time, and he is ordered to kill Sanji, and Sanji's like refusing to fight Jean at this point. And so Jean is just basically just beating up Sanji this whole time, and Jean is about to kill Sanji, and he just can't bring himself to do it, just because Sanji showed him so much kindness earlier when he gave him and Krieg food, and that kind of shift in his character with Jean's character is interesting and changes kind of the dynamic of that battle.
Yeah, and it's kind of like where you start to see like, oh, maybe there is some benefits that can come from Sanji just like unequivocally giving food to everyone, regardless of whether or not they might be a good person or not. Because
Hmm.
sometimes like, you know, people might be bad people because of circumstance, and if you can make their circumstances a little better, they might not be so mean, which is nice and wholesome.
Yeah, and also Krieg kind of poison gases Jean without any regard for his life.
He doesn't care at all. He is pretty pretty callous about
Yeah,
that.
it certainly shakes Jean's confidence in Krieg.
Yeah.
Um, the battle with Krieg is pretty good. I liked it. Definitely a lot of cool gadgets and gizmos that he had.
Hmm.
Him as a character, I thought he was interesting. I guess. I guess like I said, he kind of gives us that point of view as somebody that's been to the Grand Line, and serves
Yeah.
as a character to show how scary it can be.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I don't know. I for this arc, I kind of thought that all the cooks and the captain and Sanji and even Jane were more interesting and kind of piqued my interest a bit
Yeah,
more.
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, Don Krieg is kind of one note. Um, but yeah, the fight with Luffy is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like Luffy's finishing move that he does at the very end with like his legs,
What's
and he
that? What
kind
did
of
he
makes a
call that?
spear of his
Yeah, the
own.
spear. He does that to Arlong,
Yeah,
I think too.
or like sledgehammer or something, because he kind of like uses it to like bonk Krieg,
Yeah.
big bonk. Um, Also, I kind of like this fight, like not just for like the beatdown, but also like before. There's kind of like this whole thing of like Krieg is firing from a distance, and there's like a mast
Yeah.
that's kind of connecting these two platforms. So you kind of have like a really good like sense of space, with like where everyone is, and like that's kind of like that Krieg's using that to his advantage, which is kind of cool. Um, yeah,
Also, Krieg
I
at
don't
this
know,
point
just
knows that
just a
he's a
little.
Devil Fruit user, and you kind of have Luffy's kind of trying to maneuver this battlefield that's not. It's like a broken ship, so he's got to maneuver this battlefield that's not great for him because if he makes a wrong move or a misstep, he goes into the water and he can't swim. So
Yeah, exactly. So kind of, a little bit of tactics there in
yeah,
like the kind of like the set piece that we have for the fight, which
it
is
was definitely a
cool.
cool set piece, a broken ship.
Yeah. And like they like bring up the fins at one point to like have like a bigger platform so that they don't have to fight inside the restaurant.
Hmm.
And then like those catch on fire. So yeah, it's kind of like a nice there are like a lot of chapters of fighting, but I think that it's like it's not just like people slugging each other. There's a little bit of um the progression for the fight in like the environment, which is cool.
Hmm. And you also kind of get a
Um
sense of Luffy's power just behind his punches because he ends up cracking the metal
yeah,
armor.
yeah, he was able to crack the gold steel armor, whatever it was.
Yeah,
Um, which is cool.
yeah, for sure.
But oh yeah, and then he also like the part where like Krieg brings out his cape full of spikes, and then Luffy just doesn't give a
Oh yeah,
fuck. He just like,
he just punches
oh
the Krieg
man,
through the cape.
yeah, and like Krieg is like, ow, that hurt, and I also did not expect that.
Yeah,
Um, because Luffy just does not care at all
yeah,
about his physical well being,
for sure.
which is something that like Zeph and Sanji are kind of like talking about. Like they're like, damn, he like I like how Zeph is like he's simultaneously like do, completely disregarding like his own life, like because he's like set on this like um he's like set on this goal or whatever to like beat Krieg, but at the same time he's like doing whatever it takes to like survive, which is like those two things kind of seem like they're at odds with each other, but I mean it kind of makes sense because like he's
Yeah,
like fighting for his life, even though he's putting his life on the line.
yeah, and he
He's
points
doing
it out to
whatever it takes to
Sanji,
win.
and he points it out to Sanji in like the the frame of okay, well, Krieg's got his giant spear, but this guy that's fighting right now, Luffy, is he has a spear within him, and he will
Oh
do
yeah, he's
anything
got
in a
the
fight.
spear in his heart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like that like really gets Sanji like, all right, maybe this guy's not too bad. Like maybe he'll join
Yeah.
his crew. It kind of puts plants the seed in his head if Zeph is like, well, this guy has got like some serious fight in him, then
Mhm.
Sanji's a bit warming up to the idea of joining Luffy's crew.
Yeah. Also, I think Sanji is really inspired by his like determination and dedication to his goal. Um because like that's kind of like Sanji's arc in this like in these few chapters where he's kind of like, he feels this sense of obligation to Zeph, so that's why he doesn't want to leave. It's not like he's being held there against his will or whatever, or anything like that. Like he is free to go whenever he wants, but he feels obligated to stay. But what he sees in Luffy is this like dedication to his goal. And Sanji has a goal. He's like talking about like the all blue to these other chefs in the
Hmm.
flashback. And that's something that like he still believes in and he still wants to see realized. And Zeph knows it. But he obviously can't do anything when he's stuck on the restaurant. And so I think that's kind of like what turns Sanji around, and he's like, you know what, like if this guy can be so dedicated to his goal, then so can I.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, that's cool. I kind of like the it's like like two things that are kind of like seen as they're like virtuous. Like following your dreams is something that's like a good thing, but also like having a sense of gratitude and like repaying debts is also something that's a good thing. So it's not like, Sanji's like going from one bad thing to a good thing. It's like kind of like weighing these two things that could both be good in different circumstances. But I think Zeph definitely feels like one thing that they bring up is like, do you really think that Zeph saved you so that you could just stay on this restaurant the entire time and like just work? Like he saved you because he knew that you had things that you wanted to do with your life, and and you should go do those things. And so that's what Sanji does.
yeah, and yeah, that's the end of the and after the battle, the cooks and Zeph are all like they kind of put on an act saying, "Yeah, you're a terrible chef. Get out of here. We don't want you here, or
Yeah.
whatever." And
And Sanji knows.
yeah,
He can hear them.
Sanji knows, and he
He knows his soup is delicious.
yeah, exactly. Well, I like the entire thing. Like all the chefs call all the other chefs cooking just garbage.
Yeah,
Sanji calls Zeph's cooking, and I can't remember the other guy's cooking, garbage, and they both call his stuff garbage. When he's leaving the restaurant, they're like, Sanji, your cooking is garbage, get out of here. And I'm sure all their
yeah,
cooking is delicious, and they just hate each other. Well, not actually hate each
yeah,
other.
exactly. They're just like rough and tumble guys, you
Yeah,
know. They're
friendly
just
ribbing.
yeah, and
Um,
also like just punches and stuff
yeah,
because they're
and
tough
that's
dudes.
kind of the kick in the pants that that Sanji needs to join Luffy's crew. And then
Mm-hmm.
he and Yosaku and Sanji, Luffy, Yosaku, and Sanji all head after uh, Nami and Usopp and Zoro. Head over to the next arc, which is Arlong
Yes,
Park.
just Arlong Park. Um, I think that a lot of people say that this is like when One Piece gets like really good. Because I mean, this arc, I mean, all of the other arcs have kind of been like I like all the other ones. Um, they all kind of feel like they're just all right. This is like the arc where we get a new crew member. This is like the next one where we get a new crew
Yeah.
member.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean those are good, and I think that that's like a really good move rather than like bringing on a bunch of crew members at once because they can all kind of have their own arcs and feel a little bit more like fleshed out before they start like asking us to care about them. But this is like the first arc that kind of like bucks that trend, and also like it's just a very emotional arc, and it's like kind of like the first time where we see our guys like get paired off in like the traditional shonen way, where it's like, all right, you fight him, you fight
Yeah.
him, you fight him, and then they just like do their fights. So there's like a lot of like good shonen stuff, a lot of like great character moments in this arc. Um, it's a really good one.
Yeah, this the character moment in this arc definitely like with Nami and her backstory and like how Luffy interacts with that is I thought it was absolutely excellent. I really liked it.
Oh yeah, I really like. I mean, there's a great character moment for Luffy, when uh, who is it? I think is it Noriko that's telling her Nami's past. She's like telling their crew the story. Or Nojiko is her name actually. And Luffy is basically just like, yeah, no, I think I'm just gonna go take a walk. I don't
Yeah,
really care about Nami's past.
yeah. I think he does that
Which is
a
like
couple
great because
times.
yeah, like he just like he's not interested. Like he he says he's basically like, I don't care because like we've already agreed that we're crewmates. Like whatever she has done in her past, like that's like in the past, that's behind it. But it's also kind of like, that's just something that Luffy is like thinking on like a uh I mean, Luffy is not a complicated guy. Like he's definitely not thinking about like multiple things at once, like he's very simple. He's presented as just like it's very straightforward. So you know that whenever he's like doing something, that's just like an immediate thing for him, you
Yeah,
know? Uh, and so like I like that this is just like he's not like thinking like, ooh, how should I like present myself to like act like I don't care? Like he just doesn't care.
yeah,
Like he is not interested in Nami's past. Which like kind of like makes him seem like an asshole, like he's a little callous, but also at the same time, he's like, oh, he doesn't care because he knows that like no matter what's happened before, like what matters now is that they're crewmates and that they're always gonna look out for each other. And you kind of like think like, oh, maybe he just like is done with Nami at this point, but it's actually not. It's actually the opposite. Like he
yeah,
cares about her so much that he's willing to like put his and his crewmates' lives on the line to fight to get her out of her situation.
yeah. And also Zoro's like with like I want to tell you the backstory of my sister and like everything to know about her. Luffy's like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm gonna go for a walk. And Zoro's like, yeah, I don't really care either. I'm gonna take a nap here. And
Yeah.
Usopp's
Well,
like,
he's like
don't worry, I'll
Zoro's like, I'll
listen.
listen to your story, but then he just like immediately falls asleep.
Yeah. Um,
That's good stuff.
yeah, so Zoro, Usopp, and Johnny get there first. Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like I thought it was kind of like a funny little like switcheroo that they did because Zoro gets captured initially. I forget. He gets captured.
Well,
Who's he get?
he's like tied up on their boat when they get there because of like his injuries, I guess.
Oh
Like they
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
him to
yeah,
move.
yeah.
But then like I don't remember. I literally always forget like which one is Johnny. Um, but like the the one mercenary dude and Usopp, they
Johnny,
get
yeah.
scared. So it is Johnny.
Yeah.
So Johnny and Usopp, they
You're
get spooked when they see fishmen, so they leave.
yeah.
And then like Zoro's like, "What the hell? You're just gonna leave me here?" And then that's kind of how he gets how he washes up, and they find him.
Yeah. And then so like they Usopp or so Zoro gets captured by the fishmen and he sees Nami there and the fishmen get word that Usopp is in town at this at Nami's hometown. So Arlong and all the fishmen go off to capture Usopp while they've already captured Zoro because Nami tells them about Usopp. And while they're away, Zoro Nami lets out Zoro, and then she goes off and joins Arlong. And Zoro takes
Hmm.
down all these pirates, and then he kind of tricks the octopus guy to give him a ride to the village where Usopp is. Meanwhile,
Hmm.
Usopp gets captured by Arlong and taken
Yeah,
back to the castle. So while Zoro's making his way back to the town that Usopp's in, Usopp's making his way to Arlong's castle where he thought Zoro was. So they kind of switch places in this moment. I thought that was a little
yeah.
bit funny.
Also, we get a
Kind of.
good like Usopp being brave moment, which are like some of the best.
Yes, yeah,
Um, when he shoots Arlong, who is like this crazy strong dude,
yeah,
and he just shoots him with his like gunpowder star, and it does nothing. But it's he's I think Arlong is about to like kill this guy who had been stockpiling weapons in Nami's village. Usopp's like, whoa, I'm far away, so he probably can't hurt me. And also, this guy is about to get killed, so I should probably do so. So he snipes him as the sniper does.
yeah.
Um,
I really like all the. It's just like little small moments where whenever I get to see a new Usopp star, uh,
yes,
those are
yeah, because he has
funny.
so many.
He's got
He
so
got
many,
such a huge arsenal.
and then I think it's
Yeah.
between this arc and Loguetown. He's like, I'm working on my Tabasco star, and I was just like, oh
Yes,
hell yeah!
because we
I
do
thought it was
see
hilarious.
the egg star in this
Yeah, the
one,
egg star comes out.
where he shoots the egg, and then the guy's like, "Oh my god, is this a rotten egg?" And it is.
Yeah, I
But like,
fucking so great.
Usopp is just like running away at this point.
Yeah,
And then that's like right before he gets captured.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Um,
it's
but yeah, we're introduced to one of the first mates, which is the octopus guy, and he's got a sea cow, a giant sea cow, which I guess is another sea king, that comes from the
yes, I
Grand
think so.
Line. Um, and as after the sea cow takes Zoro to the village, he takes it out to I think he takes it out to feed the sea cow, and the sea cow doesn't show up to feed time, and instead goes and tries to take the food from um, Luffy and Sanji and Yosaku, who are all just minding their own business on this boat, trying to get to Nami at Arlong Park, and the sea cow is like shows up and they think, oh god, we're gonna get attacked. Turns out the sea cow just wants food. Luffy doesn't care, punches the sea cow really hard, which kind of shows Luffy's power. And then
Hmm.
Sanji's like, no, 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 it just wants food, don't worry. Offers the plate of food. Sea cow eats it, and then, or like, I think it's right before the sea cow takes a bite, kicks the sea cow. He's like,
Yeah, he's like,
that
dude, he
thing
was
would
gonna
have
bite
taken my
me.
arm off.
Yeah, that
And they
was
kind
good
of
stuff.
beat up the sea cow pretty good.
Yeah,
Um, and then yeah, they show up. I think they show up to the village first.
I think so.
Yeah. They show up to the village and they meet up with what's her sister's name? Nami's sister's name?
Nojiko,
Nojiko. Yeah. They meet up with Nojiko. Um,
and that's
who?
when she begins to tell the story.
Yeah. I think she tells that to Usopp first, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, I think you're right. And then they meet up with Usopp. Oh yeah, because then we get the whole thing where like Nami like pretends to kill Usopp, and then Johnny is like, "Oh my God, she just killed Usopp," and
Yeah.
so like
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
He meets up with like Luffy, and Zoro, and he's like, "Dude, like Nami is like a bad girl. Like you should not hang out with her anymore, because she just killed Usopp," and Luffy gets so mad when he says that. He's like, "You are fucking wrong. Like she did not do that. Like why would she do that?" Showing how much he he trusts Nami, which is cool,
Yeah, and then
and it's right to do so because she actually did this really cool thing where she stabbed her hand so that it looked like there was blood coming out of Usopp, um, and then Usopp actually ended up living,
yeah,
which is cool.
I like that also. We were talking about the stars of Usopp. We had seen him use. I think he had used a ketchup star at some point up to this point, and he's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, good thing I have all these ketchup packets on me."
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets out by pretending he's dead and in the water, and he swims back to the village.
Yep.
And we get the backstory because Najiko finds him. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
So
and
we
then
find out that she's actually Nami's adopted sister. Um, this Marine named Belmir saved them both from some disaster of some kind, and she brought them back to the village. And they grew up poor because Nami would always try to like steal things, and Belmir would be like, "Oh, like don't steal things," but like he wouldn't really care that much. And then she would also like eat less so that her kids could eat more, which was very sweet of her. And then we find out that like Nami's upset with Belmir, so she like runs away in quotes, not really.
yeah,
She just sort of runs to the village
and they
center.
kind of poke fun at that when they get to the village. She's like, "Oh, you ran away from home to the village center? Nice one."
Yeah. And then that's when the Fishman Pirates show up, and
Yeah,
that's when they that's when they take over.
yeah, they take over, and there's a nice very I like the scene of um or like the entire situation because the fish people are going around and they're saying 50,000 belli for every child and 100,000 for every adult, and they think they've gotten all the money, and they're like, okay, they didn't notice Bellamir's house on the edges, and they're like, oh phew, and then they notice, I think they meant notice the smoke coming from Bellamir's house because she's cooking dinner for Nami and Najiko.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, I'll make you a big dinner."
Yeah,
She's like, "Nojiko, just tell Nami to come back, and then I'll make her a big dinner because
yeah,
she's trying to make her happy."
yeah. And then so they notice that and they go to the house, and Bellamir says, "No, I have no children," and they don't have any registers or like there's no registration of the children because they're adopted. And she's like, "I will pay my 100,000 belli for myself," and then she ends up saying like, "I can't pretend that I don't have these children because I feel like a mother to them, and they feel like my actual children. So I will use that 100,000 to pay for both of them, and you can do it with me what you like." And there's a pretty sad scene between her and Arlong beating her up
Yeah,
and killing her.
sad.
Very sad.
And so that is why Nami is in this sticky situation because she wants to buy back the village.
Yeah,
And so she's kind of been working with Arlong. She even says like they like know that that's her plan, that like she wants to buy back the village because she's like, oh, like don't think of me as a crewmate, like think of me as an ally. Like I'm
yeah,
working with you currently, but once I want to buy back the village, then we're done. And Arlong is like, oh, I'm a businessman, so that's fine with me. Like we can work something out.
hmm,
Um, and so yeah, but then shenanigans ensue after that.
yeah. Um,
Um,
let's see. After
we do
that,
get
what did we get after that?
after that we get well. So once once Luffy and once everyone learns the story of Nami, um, they basically resolve to fight the fishmen
Oh
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
of basically like they're like, all right, we're gonna get Nami out of this. We don't want her to be in this situation where she's like bearing everything by herself. Um, and then I think that is the moment when we get the Luffy putting the hat on Nami, or am I missing something?
I think so, but I mean, they come to the village and they or no, they hire the Marines that we see earlier that were like under their on their payroll.
Oh, that's
Um,
right.
they
Yeah.
hire the Marines to ransack
Oh
the
yeah, there's
village.
other Marines that showed up and they
Yeah,
basically just like completely dismantled their ship just to show how strong the Fishman pirates are.
yeah. And then we get the Marines that were on the payroll. They show up uh, to basically steal Nami's she's got I think 92,000 belli or 90 or no sorry
Sh-
92 million belli or 93 million belli at this point, and
She's really close. Yeah.
yeah, she's really close, and these Marines that are on the payroll have been hired to search the village and ransack it to find this money, and Nami is unable to defend it, and she was so close to at this point, and they take the money from her, and she's basically just breaks down, and she's crying, and she sees Luffy and is like, "Please help me, Luffy." And like that's a pretty big moment because up until this point she seems like a pretty independent person, and she doesn't
Hmm.
not one to ask for help, and she just like I think she
Yeah, she's
basically
basically
straight up
been.
says like, "Help me, Luffy, I need you." And Luffy's like at that moment like that's one of the moments we were talking about earlier with like it's a pretty lighthearted thing, but like that's a really serious moment. And like when I was reading that, I was like, wow, this is a good moment. And Luffy takes his personal treasure, his hat, and puts it on her, and is like,
Mhm.
"Don't worry, I got you." And like that's such a good moment. I really like
Oh my
that
God,
moment.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like talking about it now is I'm getting like uh just chills.
yeah. I mean, it's just like so good, like because I mean everything has been leading up. Like Nami has been, she's been like bearing everything on her own shoulders. Like she's basically saying like no one in the village. Like I want, like I'm the one who's going to be like working for all of this money. And when she's unable to like do it on her own, that's when like she says like I need like my friends. I need them to help me out.
Yeah.
Um, and Luffy is like, all right, that's all I needed to hear. I
Yep.
knew that that's what you wanted from the very beginning, but now I got the go ahead. And then we get the epic march on Arlong Park
Yeah.
with like all four of our guys just like they're just ready to kick some ass going up to the
Yeah.
big four. That's also a really good moment.
Yeah.
Right after like, the super emotional one, we get a really badass one. Good stuff.
Um. So yeah, we
That's
get
one that if you haven't yet, you should just watch the anime part for that because like the music for that part is awesome. They do like there's just like this music that they just play during like basically every badass moment in the series, and it's just like I can't imagine like that part of like that moment without that music. Like just
gotcha.
like
Yeah.
picturing it in my head, like I hear it in my head. So definitely check
Yeah,
that
I
out if you
watched Luffy's
haven't.
battle with Arlong, but I did not see anything else other than that, so I will go back and watch
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
But yeah, we get the march on Arlong. We get to see it's a pretty long battle. But basically, each one of
Mm-hmm.
them, like you mentioned earlier, pairs off with one of the fishmen. Luffy with Arlong, and then Zoro pairs off with the octopus guy, who's also I think he's also a swordsman, or he just had the swords. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean he uses his like six sword style.
Yeah, so if he has a six sword style, then he's probably a swordsman. And then we get the
Yeah.
other two pairing off with Usopp and um, Usopp and Sanji. I kind of just want to talk about Usopp's first because it's pretty
Yeah.
short, uh, and I liked it because like it shows Usopp both sides of Usopp's character. At first, he's just a distraction. He's running away. He's kind of
Mm-hmm.
pestering this one guy, and then once I can't remember what happens exactly, but he gets caught somehow or like gets in a sticky situation and he's like,
Yeah.
"All right, well, I need to like do something now. I need to save myself out of this." And we get to see him use all this trickery and all these little stars and everything and he ends up defeating the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love like I mean this is like the first of them, but there are a lot of good Usopp fights throughout the series that are kind of just like him up against an opponent that is on his face like way stronger than he is.
Yeah.
And so he has to like use his wits and use like all of um these like little techniques to kind of like fuck with you and he uses them in like smart ways to like get out of it. And I really like Usopp's fights just overall because like they're there's like higher stakes because like that like he could just get bodied by this guy
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if he got too close or if like whatever he needed to do to activate his power. um so yeah, I really like Usopp's fights and this is like a really good one
Yeah.
and the first of many for sure.
And then we have I don't know, I feel like Sanji's fight wasn't as front and center as Zoro's fight.
Yeah, he was fighting the Ray guy, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Zoro's fight was definitely more focused because we get to see like swordsman versus swordsman.
Yeah, and we had seen
Um,
more of the octopus than any of the other crew members, I believe.
yeah, yeah.
So I think he was more of a focus. He kind of, I think he was the second in command, but I can't remember. Um, let's see. I honestly like just thinking about it. Like Sanji's fight doesn't stick out to me too much.
Well, he did do the he was like I remember there was like the whole thing of like the like trying to bring him underwater.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I guess we should
to
talk about at
kind
the
of like
beginning of the fight, Luffy getting underwater.
yeah, because that also does happen.
Yeah, so basically at the
Where
beginning of the
Luffy is
fight,
kind of like has like weights, so he can't get up.
yeah, he gets
And
his feet
he's
stuck in the
stuck
concrete
underwater.
and thrown in the water. So they've got it's these two, Sanji and Zoro trying to save Luffy. Same time they're trying to fight these two guys, and
Mm-hmm.
also the villagers end up trying to help Luffy out. So Luffy's stuck trying to like he can't swim, so he's got to breathe this or hold his breath for as long as he can. And I guess Sanji's fight was like him simultaneously trying to save Luffy and fight this guy at the same time, which was
Yeah,
interesting. Zoro's fight was more like him just fighting the guy, while Sanji was doing his thing in the village. It was Najiko and the chief, I believe, trying to save
yeah.
the other guy or save Luffy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Zoro's fight was cool. I liked it a lot. Just because it seemed like I always got the vibe like Zoro is just a better swordsman, and like he was like, how is this possible that I have six swords and you have three, or yeah, three, and you're beating me? It's like, well, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
get good, kid. I'm better than you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Even though like Zoro kind of by using three sword style is kind of like already subscribing to the philosophy that more swords is better.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess which is funny. I mean, three I guess is just the perfect number,
Mhm.
which is cool. Also, like the octopus guy Hachan uses like a little bit of ink at one point. He can ink, which is cool because he's an octopus. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, but he does get pretty handily beaten by Zoro,
yeah.
which is cool.
Um. Oh, and he calls on the sea cow again, who shows up pretty beaten and
Yeah,
isn't too keen on fighting again. And I think
yeah,
they
he's kind of like, oh, these guys.
I don't want any part of these guys. Sorry.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think they
which is
just
cool.
knock him away or something. He doesn't end up being a big part of the fight.
Kind of just a joke. Yeah,
Yeah. And then yeah, we have Luffy's fight, which is pretty sick. Luffy gets saved
pretty
by
brutal
yeah,
at points.
exactly. It was
Like,
pretty brutal. But yeah, he gets saved by Najiko and the chief guy, and he dukes it out with Mr. Arlong himself. Um,
hmm
Arlong the entire time is kind of preaching this thing of fish supremacy and we are the superior race.
yeah,
At birth we're 10 times stronger than your human at birth. Um, and Luffy's not really having any of it. He's just kind of like I don't really care what you think, and we get to see a lot of like Arlong's like natural strengths, so mainly his teeth.
yeah. Because like one
Uh,
of the first things that we see him do is just like there's like a ship that's like firing a cannonball, and he just like literally bites it out of the air.
yeah.
Uh,
And then the characters are introduced to it when he pins Luffy against a pillar, I believe, and as he goes to bite Luffy's head, Luffy pulls his head out of the way, but then he just bites the pillar in half, and it's like, oh shit, this guy's teeth are pretty fucking crazy.
yeah,
And I think even one person even remarks like, oh, like while he's biting, he's like, oh, his teeth should be broken after that one.
yeah.
Um,
And then we get like multiple sets of teeth, which is
yeah,
cool.
I,
There's yeah, it's a cool fight for like using teeth in like weird ways because like at one point he like uses them on his hands, like he has like
yeah.
all of the sets of teeth, and he's like biting it with his hands, which is just kind of funny.
I liked
Um,
Luffy taking the pair of teeth for himself.
yeah, he's like, oh, these look pretty good. I'll take
He's like,
those.
I like I watched that the part in the anime, and the only way I could find it was dubbed, and it was just like, I'm a shark, look at me, or something like that. I thought that was pretty funny. Um,
Yeah,
but then he tries to bite Arlong, and Arlong's like, well, you don't actually have the bite strength for that. Um, so Luffy, uh, he's I think the biggest thing for me about Luffy when he's fighting is like he's very adaptable. Like he'll get beat by something like slightly, and then he'll adapt his ways to like counter it. And so I see this especially with well, just the fight up to this point, but then after he beats Arlong, he breaks Arlong's teeth, and then Arlong starts using the other teeth, and then I think he just ends up like spearing Arlong at one point, and Arlong goes into the water and starts using that like
Hmm.
missile attack where he like throws himself at Luffy, and
Yeah.
Luffy dodges it, but he's like, oh my god, if I got hit by that, that'd be the end of the fight for me. And so the next time Arlong tries to use it, or like after a few times Luffy's dodged, Luffy like forms his hand into a net, which I think he did at the end of the Krieg fight as well. And he does
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
move.
Or maybe it was. I think it
I
might
think
have
it's
been
the
in.
same move he did on the Krieg fight where he throws him into a net and then he like uses his momentum to throw him to the ground and then spears him with his legs. Um,
Yeah, I think it was actually different because I think in the Krieg fight, it was actually Krieg wanted to use the net on Luffy to make him drown. But then
oh yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it's like that Luffy was like, "Oh, that seemed like a good move. Like
yeah,
if I can kind of reverse the situation."
yeah,
So then he just made a net out of his hands.
yeah. So then yeah, it looks like Arlong's dying or like getting beat, and then Arlong takes out the big sword. I think it's got a name, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah. Anyway, he takes out the big sword, and people are like, okay, this is his final form. This is like once he
Yeah.
takes out the sword, this he is serious. And they battle it out, and they end up Luffy ends up finding himself in the navigator's room, and that was a pretty that was another great scene that I liked. Um, Another character building scene with Nami where Luffy recognizes where he is, and he finds the blood-soaked pen,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Wow, you've really just been like making Nami do all this work." And there's like 8 years of paper stacked up in this room, and he's like, "Yes, I would use Nami way better than you would ever use her." And he's just like, "Use her? Like, excuse me? Don't you ever
Yeah.
say that about Nami?" And he starts kicking, like he like kicks a desk out, and people are like, "What the hell is that?" And like, I think it's a desk, and like Nami sees it, and she like recognizes, "Oh, that's my desk." And then he starts kicking all the papers out and like other stuff, and Nami notices like he's destroying this room that she spent so much time in and like has such an impact on her life and such a bad memory for her. And it's like a pretty touching moment between the two where it's like him destroying her past and like trying to or like destroying this bad part of her past and like trying to get her to look towards the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the ending of this arc a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely like I mean it's cool because like even though all of the other arcs have kind of been like, all right, this is like the this character's arc, this is this character's arc before we add them to the crew. This is kind of like the arc where we really feel like we understand more about Nami. Um, and we kind of like get closure on her past. And she really becomes like a real member of the crew.
Yeah, because
Um,
that was something I was
yeah.
thinking when I was reading this up until this point. I was just like, Nami, I'm not so sure about her so far because it seemed
Uh-huh.
like, I definitely think that's what he wanted us, the author wanted us to think, because like the entire time everyone's like, I don't like Nami, she's not trustworthy, she's always like eyeing her treasure or whatever, and
Uh-huh.
Luffy's like there being like nonsense, she's fine, she's a member of the crew, and I think that's like he was kind of pointing us in the direction like she will betray you at one point, and like
Mm-hmm.
this arc where she betrays them, and then we get the backstory, and she really becomes a member of the crew after this, and like the reader is like, yes, I fully trust Nami now that we know her backstory, and I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. This is definitely like a Nami's arc, like like more so than the Orange Town arc for sure. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
especially since like we kind of like, I mean that also like what you were saying before about like Luffy being like, nah, she's a member of the crew, like we're good. Uh, that's kind of like not only is that like making us be like, all right, maybe we shouldn't trust Nami, but it's also just like this is like just a Luffy thing. Like he just like is trusting of people like to a fault. Like even when they might betray him, he's just very like, you know what? Like I'm gonna choose to trust you, so I trust you.
yeah,
He's very optimistic about other people.
yeah. Um, but yeah, Luffy defeats Arlong with a it's like a hammer kick. I can't remember what he calls it. Big kick from the sky, throws him down
Hmm.
and defeats him. And uh, get a party in the city in the town. I think they take down those Marines that had Nami's money after that too.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a very good feast
Yeah.
after. There's like a
Hmm.
big celebration. It definitely feels very earned because this is like definitely the toughest enemies that our boys have faced up until this point.
Yeah. I
Uh,
can't remember. Luffy like asks Sanji where he got some kind of food or something, and or like asks what it is and where he got it, and Sanji just makes up some bullshit food, and Luffy goes like hunting for this food that doesn't exist. Um,
yeah.
Another
Yeah, this
small
is
little
another
character
great
building
moment
moment.
where we
Yeah.
see a lot of good like character interactions
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
in the
Exactly.
downtime
And it,
between
and
arcs.
and it, they've earned it with that like last arc, like this little downtime.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then we get I think the very end of it is they report to the Marine guy being like, "Yo, this guy named Luffy's fucking shit up. Let's put a bounty on him." And then we learn like I think Buggy had a 10 million or no 10,000 Belli reward or no it was
Something like
10
that.
million I think. Um,
Yeah. And then Arlong's was 20 million for
yeah,
sure, I think.
I believe so. And so they
Yeah.
put Luffy's at 30 million
Yeah.
because he's
Cuz he
defeated
beat.
both of them.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, then I guess we just go to the next arc unless you have something you want to say.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, just like, Luffy kind of feeling like he's finally getting recognized by um like the world government, like the Marines, but also like he's getting notoriety, which is important if you want to be the pirate king.
Yeah, and I liked his wanted poster being smiling, like it fits
Yeah,
his.
he's just cheesing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's cheesing for sure.
Good stuff.
And yeah, the next arc was kind of like I really liked the next arc. It's not a very long arc, but I liked it a lot
Yeah, it's
because
like 5 chapters, but
yeah, I
yeah.
liked it a lot because like it reminded me of like uh it was kind of like the same vibe as like the downtime kind of what we were just talking about with
Sure,
like
yeah. Yeah, a lot of it is just them kind of like in Loguetown, which
yeah,
is by the way like the town where Gold Roger is from
yeah.
and also where he was murdered or not murdered, executed.
And
And
they all have like what they want to do in this town. Like
mhm,
Zoro wants to get swords. Sanji wants to get some grub for them to cook.
yeah.
Nami, what does Nami want to do?
I mean, I think she
I think
just
she just
wants
wants
to
to visit the
like
town.
yeah.
But I don't know. I really like the arc just because it felt like it was fleshing out the world a bit more, and it was also like showing like yeah they're just like stopping here to restock and nothing crazy is going on, but like it's kind of
Uh-huh.
nice world building, and it reminded me of like playing a game. And you just gotta like okay, well in between missions let's go stock up on some
Yeah, yeah,
resources.
like when you get to a new town in like an RPG and you're like, all right, I'll just like talk to the NPCs, like see
Yeah,
what's up here,
super
like
cool. And
get some more
this guy's
items
got a
and
cursed
stuff.
sword and stuff. It's like oh crap, and
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah I liked it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we learned about like the there's like, different like weapon grades for like the swords
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah, so we should
Um
talk about Zoro going to the sword shop introduces a few things.
mhm.
We get to meet one Marine. I can't remember her name. Uh,
It is Tashigi.
Tashigi, yeah. So we get to meet Tashigi, and she is a sword nerd, basically. And
Mhm.
well, the first Zoro finds her because she beats up two guys in the street, and then he goes to buy swords at this local sword shop, and she's also shopping there, or she's getting her sword repaired there, I guess. Um, but yeah,
Mhm.
she's like a huge sword nerd, and Zoro's like interested in her kind of because she looks like the girl that he knew when he was a kid that wanted to be the greatest swordsman of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
He kind of like is reminded of her.
yeah, he says she looks like her and she wants to be a swordsman, so he's like very like intrigued by this girl.
Mhm.
And so yeah, she notices that Zoro's sword is extremely valuable. Uh and is it's one of the 14 what are they it's like I think it's 14 of the super one of the super types.
All right, yeah, the cursed one is like one of the I think it's like the 3 grades or something. Um let's see if I can. Let's see if the wiki will tell me. But it's definitely one of. It's like it has a name, and it's like made by like this like important guy.
Sandai
Um.
Kitetsu, is that it?
Yeah, yeah. That's like the grade that it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
S-
oh no. Actually, I think that's yeah. Kitetsu is like the um is like the system, I think. And so Sandai Kitetsu is like the third grade of
Yeah.
like of
So that's the one he picks out, and then he's also got the one that he had on him that was also extremely valuable. Um, and so yeah, now he's got two of these really good swords,
hmm
and he buys a third sword out of the bucket. The third sword wasn't anything special, was it?
I don't think so.
But yeah, it was another moment where like uh, Zoro. I kind of mentioned it earlier with Zoro being like, if I die here, then I'm not really the greatest swordsman of all time. And this he buys the sword after the other guy's like, I'm not selling you this sword, it's cursed. He buys it. And he's like, well, I mean, if I can't use this cursed sword, and the sword doesn't really choose me, then I probably won't become the greatest swordsman of all time. And so he like throws the sword up in the air and spins it and sticks his arm out, and the sword misses him. The other guy's like, okay, you can have
Yeah.
it for free, just take it.
Yeah.
Um, and then he also gives him, I think his third sword he gets but from the guy, right? Doesn't the
um
shopkeep give him another sword after that? I
yeah,
believe he
yeah.
does.
So the cursed one, like once he sees that like the cursed one doesn't cut him off, he's just like, okay, you can just take this one. Like this one is not as quite
Yeah,
as good as the cursed one. Because yeah, like you said, like the cursed one, I think there's only three of them. It's like in like the top level or
yeah.
whatever.
So yeah,
Um,
he gets a skillful grade sword, Yubashiri,
yeah,
which there's 50 of in
yeah,
the world, and it's the most
uh-huh.
valuable one he has in his shop. So yeah, now he's got three pretty bitchin' swords,
Mm-hmm.
which is super cool, and I'm excited
Yeah.
for that.
And they like have names and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They're
definitely
cool enough to
interesting.
have names.
Uh-huh.
Definitely
And one
cool.
of them is literally a cursed sword.
Yeah,
So
like
that's good stuff.
yeah, so then that's Sanji and Tashigi, and then we get or sorry, Zoro and Tashigi, and then Sanji and Usopp's getting more supplies for his stars, and Sanji buys a ginormous fish, and
Yes.
then we have Nami buying clothes, and then Luffy because his entire thing is Pirate King Gold Roger, so he goes to the execution stand, and he just climbs up because that's what Luffy does, and everyone's like
Yeah,
get the
he's like, look at me, like this is like where my idol was killed.
yeah, and everyone's like get the hell down from there, and then at that moment, uh, Alvida comes out. Um, or does Buggy come
Yes.
first?
I don't know. I mean, they're together now, which is
Yeah,
something that happened on the cover arc, which is cool. That
yeah,
like this is like yeah for that. This is where they're coming back into the story.
yeah,
Um, and so Buggy, he's chasing Luffy, uh, and he wants to kill him.
yeah. So he traps Luffy under the the plank with the three holes in it, and he wants to execute
Yeah.
Luffy. Um, and him and Alvida's kind of got. I don't know. I kind of got the vibe that she's got the hots for Luffy because Luffy beat her up.
Yeah, she's kind of like, ooh, like he beat me up. It's
Yeah.
kind of hot.
And then she's like, "Well, if you're so strong and you want to be my boyfriend, then you got to beat Buggy too." And Luffy's like, "What the hell's
Uh-huh.
going on right now?"
Yeah.
So Buggy
Luffy
traps
literally does
him.
not even know what sex is,
Yeah.
so
Ever
he's
since,
he's
yeah. This entire time, I guess we should say, what's her? Nami's been like, the pressure differential is there's definitely a storm coming. I could feel it coming.
oh yeah, yeah.
And then so as Buggy goes to execute Luffy and he raises his sword, gets struck by lightning, which only hits Buggy because Luffy's made of rubber, so that wouldn't affect him.
Yes.
And then Tashigi, or not, I guess Tashigi doesn't get word. Tashigi goes back to the Marine base, and the Marines get word that there are a bunch of pirates in the square. So the Marine captain, Captain Smoker, I think his little name is just Smoker, right?
Yeah, just
Uh,
smoker.
who we find out is also Devil Fruit user, right?
Yes, he has the like smoke devil fruit,
Yeah, the smoke
um,
fruit, whatever that is.
which is like an interesting one because Luffy cannot hit him
Yeah,
because he's literally made out of smoke.
yeah.
Um,
Um, Seems
and
kind of
so like
strong.
Luffy can do nothing against him. He has like no means of damaging him or anything. He just
Yeah,
has to kind of like run away from this guy.
seems a little
Um,
strong. But yeah, Captain Smoker comes and handfully dispatches both Buggy and Alvida, and
mhm,
Tashigi also comes with him and learns that, or I guess we should say Usopp and the gang save Luffy from the place, and they're running away. And Tashigi finds out, oh, that guy that she met in the shop earlier was actually Roronoa Zoro. Zoro, yeah, that is a infamous bounty hunter and apparently a pirate. And she doesn't like pirates, and she has a goal of like getting all the powerful swords so that they're not in the hands of pirates that don't respect them or
mhm,
whatever.
yeah,
So she wants to fight Zoro and take his swords, and Zoro completely just wipes the floor with her, like not even close. We don't get to see the
yeah,
fight really, but
yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
I kind of got like the vibe between her and Zoro, as I got the same vibe I got from with Zoro and Mihawk, whereas it's like, I'll see you later when you're stronger, kid, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's not even like he wasn't even trying. Like he
Yeah,
was basically just like, all right, I don't even really see you as a real opponent.
yeah. Um, and yeah, they are pursued by Smoker, who uh, it seems to give him a little trouble, but they are able to run away well enough, I think.
And we also see the introduction of a new character who kind of aids in Luffy and the gang's escape.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
mysterious guy.
yeah, who basically like Smoker's like, oh, the government has been looking for you,
Do we get his
but
name?
we don't. Um, I I don't remember if we get his name in this arc. Uh, let me see. I don't know. Do we?
Yeah. So yeah, they all go back to the ship.
Oh yeah, I think we do. I think we do get his name.
I mean, I
It's
just got
Dragon.
if we didn't, I got spoiled by the wiki. His name is Dragon.
Oh, that's not good.
um,
All right, well, it's Dragon.
yeah, I don't think that's.
I think it was revealed that it was Dragon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Don't go
Anyway,
don't go poking around on the wiki too much.
yeah, that's I'm trying to. I'm on the arc for Loguetown right now, and there's a picture
Yeah.
of him, and it says Dragon. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
will avoid the wiki from now on. Anyway,
No, no. I mean, like, it's probably fine if you stay on that page, but like, if you start clicking links, you
oh yeah,
might
for
get some
sure.
stuff spoiled.
Well, I mean,
Um.
currently there's a popular page that says chapter 1000, so I'm not going to click on that. But yeah, they go back to the ship, and there's a good moment where they all state their goals. And I mentioned earlier, like one of their goals seemed a little underwhelming, and that was Usopp's. Um,
hmm
so Luffy's is to become the Pirate King. Uh, Zoro's is to become the greatest pirate of all time, or the greatest swordsman of all time. Sanji's is to find all blue. Nami's is to chart all the oceans or the entire world or whatever. And then
hmm
Usopp's just like, I want to become a feared warrior or something like, or feared adventurer or something like that.
Uh-huh. He
And I
wants
was
to be a
like,
brave warrior of the sea.
yeah, a brave warrior of the seas. And I was just like, oh, okay. I feel like I feel like that's not too hard to achieve. He's kind of achieved some of that
Well,
so far, but we'll see.
yeah. Yeah, he's working on it.
Yeah,
He's not brave all the time, but he's brave sometimes.
I'm expecting he'll find something he wants to put his efforts towards a bit more. Um, and we also get the scene with Shanks and Mihawk, which is a pretty freaking hype scene.
Yeah. They're
Mihawk
like,
shows
ooh,
up
these
with the
two dudes
wanted
know each
poster.
other?
Yeah, super cool. I want to go back and read that scene because I wanted to see if I could see Yasop there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I didn't I wasn't paying attention because I completely forgot the Yasop was part of Shanks' crew. But yeah, that I was really hyped when I read that. I was just like, dang, well, Mihawk's like the super strong guy, and then like he just shows up and Shanks like, what do you want to fight or something? And Mihawk's like, no, 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 no. I thought you should know about this kid. He reminded me of that story you told me that one time. And Shanks is like, oh, so Luffy's going the Grand Line. Hell yeah. And it was super cool. I like that scene a lot.
Yeah, definitely. That's like another like a good moment where it's like it's paying off stuff from the beginning because we're like, oh, like we remember Shanks, and now we're seeing him again. We're seeing that he's like friends with Mihawk, but it's also kind of like giving us more questions. Like what is Shanks's role if he's like casually hanging out with like Mihawk? Like how are they connected? Because we find out that Mihawk is like a Shichibukai, which is like one of the seven warlords that are basically like privateers, kind of. Um, they like kind of like work for the government.
Oh
They
yeah,
work for they're like officially sanctioned Marines who kind of
yeah,
like hunt other pirates. And then in exchange for that, the government kind of just like lets them do what they want as long as they'll like, respond when they need them. So we're like, all right, that's what Mihawk is doing. What's Shanks doing?
yeah,
And so it's a cool moment because it's like kind of like payoff for things that have been set up before, but it's also setting up more things and getting more questions answered or
yeah.
asked, I guess. Asking and answering questions in the same moment is pretty cool.
And yeah, it was kind of just like the entire time I was reading this, like Shanks is introduced, and I was like, well, I wonder when we're gonna hear about Shanks next. And you hear about him with Buggy, but like that's Shanks's past, like that
Mm-hmm.
they'd been together. And I was like, is Shanks still around? Is he still going? Like I expected him to be still going, and like, is he strong? Is he like one of the cool? It kind of reminded me of like Gon and his dad. Like you don't hear
Uh-huh.
too much about it, and like
Uh-huh.
Gon finds his dad, and his dad's super strong. But this is
Mm-hmm.
uh, Luffy and Shanks, and it was cool to get like, yeah, Shanks is still kicking. He's still around, and well, he at least thinks he can fight Mihawk, which means he's probably pretty strong, and that they
Yeah.
probably fought in the past. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was I think that's pretty much the end of that.
Yeah. So now our boys are heading to the Grand Line.
Yeah,
Um,
which has been
and now
built up quite a bit.
yeah. So that's the next obstacle for them to overcome. And yeah, I mean, I would say that like this is basically like these 100 chapters are pretty much like they're just like the beginning, like
Yeah,
now that they're going to the Grand Line, now things are going to get different, things are going to get crazy, as we'll see in the future. But like 100 chapters for just the beginning, but also it's like, it doesn't feel like this was just set up, like there's like, yeah, it's setting up a lot of stuff, but it's also like a lot of like great character moments and things like that just make it worth reading, like on its own merits, like not
yeah,
just like the fact that this is setting up for a 1,000 chapter series, like um, yeah, which is one thing that I think that One Piece is really good at, is like balancing a lot of like long term and short term payoffs. Like we get a lot of short term stuff in like the individual arcs and things like that, or like within a specific fight. But then there's also a lot of like series long stuff that gets set up and paid off down the line. Um, which is, I think, a turn of phrase that I'm going to be using a lot down
yeah.
the line, especially now that we are on the Grand Line, or not on the Grand Line yet, but we're making our way towards
To
it.
the Grand Line. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
So, what were your, as a first time reader, kind of like overall thoughts on these 100 chapters?
I liked it a lot. Like I said before, it's like pretty. It's a pretty joy. Like it's like a joy to read. You know, it's good
Mm-hmm.
characters. Luffy, kind of like Luffy's kind of contagious in that way, where it's like a very just happy to read, light going adventure, but like also hits you with the really strong moments after enough character development is going on. You get moments like Luffy and Nami, and him giving the hat, and like that's an excellent moment. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and yeah, so I like all the characters so far. I like all the villains. I mean, the villains, some of the villains definitely are not as cool as the other villains. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't seem like, I mean, they haven't really gotten to a point where like there are like like a huge consequences for losing or like stakes on the line yet. But I'm expecting that's just
Yeah,
because they're building up. So I'm not
yeah,
too uh too distraught by that.
yeah. The series definitely gets a little different when once we're on the Grand Line. And then yeah, a lot of like I would kind of agree with for like the villains, like a lot of them are kind of like just for their specific arc. Um, and so and since a lot of these arcs are short-ish, they're not really super fleshed out. Um, but like I think that the arcs are like not just focused. I mean, especially since these ones are like a lot more focused on like the crew members. Um, like the arcs aren't really focused on the villains, but like the villains are kind of just there to, in some ways, like provide contrast and stuff with
Yeah,
like what we're learning about our characters.
and
But
I'm
yeah, I
also
mean, yeah, I would say that like in the future, like when we get more like long-term villains or like the arcs get a bit longer, um, they're definitely like better villains
and I'm also expecting some of the past villains to get the Buggy treatment and bringing back. And of course, Buggy's still going to be a. I'm guessing he's a pretty recurring character because he seems kind of slapsticky and like that kind of whole thing, and he's going to be
hmm
constantly pursuing Luffy. Um, and I'm expecting some of the other villains, namely Accent Logan Morgan, Accent
Morgan.
Morgan, because he had the little comic with um, Kobe and Helmeppo. They showed him
hmm
getting freed. So I'm guessing he might come back in some capacity when Kobe gets reintroduced. And then maybe it kind of seemed like when Krieg got knocked down because they have the whole thing with him and Gene, and like Gene might
Uh-huh.
try to influence him
Yeah,
in
Gene
some way.
literally says like, "Ooh, I'll see you. Tell Luffy I'll see him on the Grand
Yeah,
Line."
exactly. So I'm expecting him and Gene Krieg and Gene to come back at some point. But
For
that was
sure.
definitely the vibe I got from some of the villains. Like they will be back, and of course, I guess Alvita comes back as well. Um,
hmm
yeah,
Yep.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, really good stuff. Like these a really good start to a really really great
Did
series.
you like
And
notice anything when you were reading it again? Like I'm guessing reading this again because you were mentioning how well he is, how good he is at like establishing things and calling back to them. So like without
yeah,
spoilers, I'm guessing you were probably like noticing a whole lot of things that you didn't notice before.
yeah, there was definitely like there was like a name drop that occurred here where like we won't meet that character for a very very long time, and it's just like impressive that like that character was already thought out. I mean, like it's just a name drop, so I mean, I'm not gonna give him like too much credit, but like it's that kind of stuff is nice because it's
Yeah,
like for like I'm sure that certain people were like, oh, like this person was like name dropped, they're probably a big deal, and then they like that was a payoff for them like once he did get revealed,
yeah,
like as an actual character in the narrative. So there was like some of that stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, definitely like it's cool to come back to for sure.
yeah,
I mean, also like for what's been set up, and then also to like see like where our characters started out as opposed to like what they grow into as the story moves on. So yeah, it was definitely really good on a reread, and also just sort of like themes and stuff. Like I was picking up more on like stuff that was like, oh, this is where this started, like that kind of thing.
yeah.
Like this is where like the personal treasure thing kind of like got got the wheels rolling or whatever. Um, so yeah, it was definitely really really good on a reread as well.
All right. Uh, that's it for this episode of One Piece Cast,
Yeah.
or a special episode of Anime Soiree, whatever this is.
Yes, we will
Manga
definitely be
Soiree.
doing more of this. Um,
I
we'll
think the next
we
episode
should discuss how long we want the next one to be because this one was two
I
hours.
mean, if we're doing it based off this one, then it'd probably be to 217 because that's what I'm seeing the next like area goes to. But we could also
hmm
cut it shorter than that. I'm okay with whatever.
Yeah, there would be. I think there'd be like a good place to cut it in between if we didn't want it to
Yeah.
be 200 or like 100 chapters.
All right.
But we can talk.
Yeah, yeah,
But yes, we'll be moving into the Grand Line for sure on the next
yeah.
episode.
Yeah, pretty
So
excited looking into the Grand Line.
stay tuned for that.
All right. Well, thanks for watching this episode and catch you later.
Bye.